Hello and welcome to Deccan Dialogues. Today's episode brings to you a conversation between two experts, Mohan Guruswamy and Parakala Prabhakar. Both of them are trained economists and public intellectuals. Today's conversation is about Hindi being imposed on the whole country as a national language. Does this really augur well for the country? Is Hindi chauvinism emerging as a dangerous tripod of Hindu, Hindi, and Hindutva? In other words, religion, language, and politics. Is this going to be sowing the seeds of disintegration of the country? Over to Mohan Guruswamy and Parakala Prabhakar.
You must have followed what our Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, who seems to be the main point of policy emanation these days. Prime Minister doesn't speak on policies anymore. The Home Minister does. And he has said that Hindi will be the medium of instruction in all national education institutions, which means the IITs, the IIMs, the medical AIMs, medical colleges, national law schools, all of them will be Hindi medium in the next few years. Wholesale conversion of these institutions into Hindi medium. That means all your English textbooks, all that will be aside, and you will have new textbooks in Hindi. All 60% of the country which doesn't speak Hindi will learn Hindi and go to those institutions. It's like either going to Ukraine, you learn Ukrainian or Russian and go to study medicine. So it will happen like that in India. Do you think, I personally feel very strongly about this. Not because, first of all, Hindi is not an indigenous language. It is a language created by the East India Company by a veterinary doctor of the East India Company called Gilchrist, who was also a linguist in spare time, who concocted this language for the East India Company. It was meant to replace Persian as the court language. So they said there's no other language in India, so we'll create one and give it to these fellows. Because the British were morbidly afraid of reaccession of Muslim power. Because even in 1857, they were ruling in the name of the Badshah. So Hindi came up. Then the Macaulay minutes were there that you must teach these fellows English. Whatever happened, English spread well. English gave India a governing class, a ruling class, an Indian ruling class. Now, if I have to learn Hindi, to me Hindi is as much a foreign language as English is, or lesser. English is a lesser foreign language than Hindi is. Though I know I'm fluent in Hindi, but I don't consider it my language. I consider English my language and Hindi my second language of convenience. But these people are insisting that it should be forced on the rest of the country. Now, even in Bihar, there's a strong resentment against the imposition of Hindi. Because they say we have Magadhi, we have Maithili, we have our own languages, and this Hindi has come and wiped it out. Rajasthan has Marwadi in various languages. All over, because the script is the same, Devanagari, Hindi has managed to, and the activities of the Arya Samaj, the RSS and all, insisting that these people should ask for, list Hindi as their mother tongue in the census, has resulted in this anomaly. Even now, in Haryana, there is a movement asking them to list Sanskrit as their mother tongue. For heaven's sake, Sanskrit is their mother tongue. And these people doing all this are going to break this country up. This country was based on egalitarian ideals, so that we'll all be one nation, drawn together by ideals, not by some linguistic consideration, some bogus linguistic consideration that. Now, what do you think about this?
Mohan, this is a very complex question, very complicated, but I must say that whatever is happening and what the Home Minister has said recently, this makes me feel anxious. makes me feel very concerned. It's alarming in a way. The point is this: Hindi is being pushed, one as a national language, the other one as our own language, and the other facet of it is to push it as a mother tongue. And then because they want to show it as a national language, they are also touting it as a link language. Now the argument boils down to this, that Hindi is spoken by a large number of people, larger than any other linguistic group, and therefore that is the largest spoken language in India, understood by largest number of Indian people. Therefore, it should be the link language, the national language, medium of instruction, etc., etc. Now, we have to examine this claim very deeply. Number one, Hindi, as you said, is an artificial construct by a lot of measures. The other one is, in 1961, I remember, by looking at the census figures, 10 languages were clubbed under Hindi. In 1971, that 10 has increased to 48. Now the latest, the 2011 census lists 55 languages under the rubric of Hindi. Now there are a lot of protests, you mentioned some of them. So, which means that Hindi is definitely not the language which is spoken by the largest number of people. One. Therefore, the claim that this has to be a national language, this has to be a link language, this has to be, learned by everybody, is based on a very dubious kind of a claim and statistics. Look at the other side of it. Now, to push Hindi, the present government talks to us by saying that we should have education, instruction in our mother tongue and in Indian language. If that is the case, I would like to have my education in Telugu. You would like to have it in Tamil. Somebody would like to have it in Gujarati, Bengali, Marathi, Kannada. There are so many languages, and these languages are not the constructs. They are ancient languages.
Absolutely.
Very rich languages.
And rich with history.
Rich with history. In these languages, statecraft has evolved.
Absolutely.
Huge empires were ruled in these languages. So, if you want to tell me that, I need to learn Hindi and not my Telugu and not your Tamil, not somebody's Bengali, not somebody's Marathi, but Hindi, in order to qualify as Indian, in order to become or show myself as a patriot, in order to show myself as a nationalist, I think this claim is a bogus claim.
No, I will go one step further. I do not subscribe to that nation.
Exactly.
So, if that is basically the nationhood, then I don't want this nationhood. I'm going to be very clear on that, because.
But that is no nationhood.
That is not a nationhood.
That's never a nationhood.
Yeah.
Nobody talked about it.
That is a kind of
parochialism. 10 years ago.
That is a kind of parochialism being thrust on the whole country.
Yes.
You talk to me about nationhood based on our shared values, our shared goals, what we want to do for the country, what kind of government we will have, what kind of behavior we will have with each other, but not on the basis of something concocted and spurious.
Okay. Now let us come to the instruction. Let us come to education. Worldwide, it is recognized that instruction in mother tongue is the most beneficial for a child. UNESCO has recognized it, UN has recognized it, almost unanimity amongst the linguists, and people who are experts in pedagogy and all that. I have been in only Telugu medium until my intermediate. The first ever time I opened my textbooks in English was when I came to degree, my bachelor's degree. I had English as a subject. I learned English, but not as a medium of instruction. And I am no poorer for not being instructed in English medium. So I can have my Telugu medium, your Tamil medium, or a Bengali medium, or a Marathi medium, or a Kannada medium, and learn English instead of learning Hindi. Learn English so that I am connected to the rest of India. I am connected to the rest of the world, and more importantly, I am connected to the cutting edge research, scientific research and technological research which is happening in the world. Now, there are people who might argue that Russians don't learn, Japanese don't learn, Chinese don't learn, French don't learn, Spanish don't learn. Agreed, they don't learn because as and when a latest discovery or an invention or a research paper is published in the peer-reviewed standard international journals in English, for instance, immediately it's translated into their languages. But our languages do not have that kind of a facility. We have not developed that kind of a facility. It needs to be done. That's fine. But if it is not done, now look at the kind of hilarious thing that we had in Madhya Pradesh recently about the medical textbooks. No, medical textbooks, it was not in Hindi. It was transliterated into Hindi.
Even anatomy is written in Devanagari.
In Devanagari. So instead of writing it in English script, Roman script, you write it in Devanagari script and call it Hindi medium is ridiculously. So that kind of a thing, the translation, the kind of access, because you see, if I would like to learn things in my motherhood so that I understand the process, I process the thing very well, but because I am learning it in mother tongue, I should not be denied access to the cutting edge research and development, technology and science in the world. Now, what is the government of India doing about it? It's not doing anything about it.
No, it can't do anything about it, for a start, because there are far too many languages. They have to cater to everybody, and far too many major languages. Now, Hindi occupies the role of a link language between the peoples of northern India, who speak Marwari, Chhattisgarhi, all the various different languages.
But Mohan, let me interrupt you. I went to parts of Gujarat where they don't understand Hindi.
Absolutely.
They don't understand Hindi. They speak their Kutchi, they speak their...
In Gujarat, in Haryana, they don't understand what you're saying.
There are
in
so
Punjab,
many
they can't understand.
In Rajasthan, they don't understand Hindi. This claim that Hindi is understood by most of the North Indians is not
This is
right.
a fiddle by the census, where if your mother tongue is Chhattisgarhi, they put Hindi. Because there's nothing in the columns. Now, I must squarely blame the Congress party for this. The Congress party came to power in 47 with militant Hindi as advocacy of Hindi. They wanted Hindi to be, and this whole nation to be.
They even succeeded in putting it in the constitution.
Absolutely. And they used to say that, Israel has got a new language. Everybody is learning Hebrew, an ancient language. So we should learn Hindi or Sanskrit. So the original Hindyites and Sanskritists were the Congress fellows. Today they were silent in the debate. They've allowed this thing to be hijacked by Johnny-come-latelys, who have now started and said, this is our language. This is their language. Even not their language, it's not the RSS, Sarsan Sahib's mother tongue. His mother tongue is Marathi or what the kind of Vidarbhi Marathi they speak in Vidarbha. Somebody else is from Chhattisgarh, he speaks Chhattisgarhi. Hindi is their link language. Just like English is our link language between us and our own people. Within our peoples, within the peoples of the south, within the peoples of other parts of India. And English therefore occupies a higher position because it's the window to the world. It's a window to this huge world of knowledge outside, which is why Indians are able to compete. Why were we able to get off on software, IT first, and have one of the biggest software industries in the world?
That's not exposure to English.
English. Without English, would be biotechnology, same thing. And if today India produces scientists who go abroad, earn Nobel Prizes, do well in corporations, it's all because of English education. And we should aspire that for all our people.
So, which means that it boils down to my mother tongue and English.
And absolutely.
Yeah. And you see, I'm fairly comfortable in Hindi, Mohan. You are fairly
I
comfortable
am
in Hindi.
totally versatile
You're
in
very,
Hindi.
very fluent in Hindi.
I write also.
Yes. And you see, that's not because I was instructed, I was forced, I was pressured to learn Hindi. I learned Hindi. As much as I'm fairly okay in French, I was fairly okay in Sanskrit. I have a nodding acquaintance with Tamil, and I'm okay in Telugu. All this is because nobody really forced me to do it. We have an interest, number one, and our profession is required to learn certain things and to converse with people, to understand what they are saying. Because I also do a lot of market research. I also do a lot of opinion polling. When I go to places like Gujarat or Rajasthan or Himachal Pradesh or other places, I need to get a sense of what they are saying or what they're feeling, what their opinions are. Which means that so your professions, your walk of life, they expose you to languages, and out of interest you learn languages. But if somebody wants to impose Hindi, that at any rate I have to learn Hindi, I will resist.
As an individually, my Hindi is say 90% equal to my English. I'm versatile. I write in it, I speak in it, I read it. I read Hindi.
You're very fluent and you are as good as a native speaker.
I read Hindi newspapers regularly. I talk on Hindi TV fairly often. So I have no issue against Hindi.
But in principle?
In principle, because you're going to wreck this country and you're going to put this language, I use it as a link language. I quite often when we have this discussions, I tell my North Indian friends, I'm talking to you because this is our link language. You don't understand my language. Actually, my Telugu I read and read, but I have very little Tamil. If I go to a Tamil movie, I can't understand. Because the Tamil spoken these days is different from the Tamil we speak on the street.
Exactly.
But I absolutely reject Hindi as a link language, as a language to the world. You cannot, this whole nonsense of going to the United Nations and making them translate Hindi speeches and saying it's a great achievement. Not an achievement, it's an act of stupidity. It's a and it's a regressive action. Each time you do that, you are alienating the people of the south, of the east, west, everybody. People are watching. And you know this? Till 1962, we had a separatist agitation.
Of course.
And there were agitations like that which will come up all over the country. Once you get the youth on the streets saying that you will not get jobs unless you learn Hindi first, unless you do, and in any case you can't compete with those fellows who are educated from the KG class in Hindi, then you'll get people's backs up.
Mohan, I want to bring a couple of more points into this dialogue that we are having. Hindi speakers generally, wittingly or unwittingly, knowingly or unknowingly, they say Hindi and regional languages, as though Hindi is a national language, approved, endorsed, and, agreed upon national language, and Telugu, Tamil, Bengali, Kannada, Marathi are all regional languages, vernacular. Some people say. This is very, very insensitive. Number one. Number two, when you had education commissions talking about the three language formula, in most of these states, the mother tongue, English and Hindi are taught.
I went through three languages.
But show me one Hindi speaking or Northern Indian state where Hindi, English and another language, be it be Marathi, be it be Bengali, be it be Tamil or Telugu, it's never taught. It's a flouting of the three language formula, which is done, and with impunity it is done. This is the second one. The third one is a very insidious effort, initiative, to show Hindi as an equivalent of being patriotic, being nationalistic, and Hindu Hindi. And
Hindutva coming out of it.
Yeah, sorry.
And Hindutva coming out of it.
And Hindutva Hindi. And a few months ago there was a Pew Research findings about India, talking about the the religious and political preferences of Indians. Now most of these the so-called Hindi belt, where politically it is now it's framed in such a way that respondents said they are Hindi speakers, they are Hindus, and most of the Hindi speakers who claim that they are Hindus, or most of the Hindus that claim that they are Hindi speakers, also voiced their preference, political preference, as BJP. So this tripod of Hindu, Hindi, BJP, language, religion and politics.
That concentration you can see on the electoral map. Yeah. It's there, all orange.
Yeah.
In the northwest corner of India, from central India to the northwest, is there like blood, showing exactly on the soul of the country. But it's still their language. If India is the language of country of many nations, your nation, my nation, his nation, everybody's nation. We are different nations. Now, one nation or one purported nation, newly constructed nation, a Hindutva nation is saying that you become like me. I refuse to become like that.
Exactly, yes.
And for every Vaishnavite god you produce, I have a Shaivite god of my own in my backyard. So these people are walking on very dangerous ground. After all, in the old days, the ideological cleavage between the northern states and the southern states was Vaishnavism and Shaivism. The conflict used to be between them. When the Rashtrakutas went to fight the Palas, they were fighting Vaishnavism. And when they went to defeat the Pariharas in Gujarat,
they were riots.
Yeah.
The so-called communal riots before the advent of Islam were between Vaishnavites and Shaivites.
Absolutely. And this was their ideology. Today you are saying that all this is one. And
so this effort to homogenize and put everybody in one basket.
In a heterogeneous country.
Yeah.
And we have 1500 dialects, for heaven's sake, in this country. 34, 35 major languages. You can't make me one. This is not China where Hans are 91%. In China you can do it. You can crush the others.
And obliterating every other identity.
Absolutely. Now, here you want to obliterate everybody. You go to say that, then you will come with your complete caboodle of superstitions, saying that, after all, temple worship or idol worship, I'm a relatively an agnostic. I consider it an act of superstition. That you go and break your head in a temple. I go to temples frequently to look at the architecture, the splendor, as a communal place.
Oh, that's
but I never offer prayers.
Part of our history.
Yeah, I never offer any prayers.
Yeah.
Because I think that is superstitious. I think that guy sitting there is not going to cure me of my problems. And it's a stone idol, creation of man. But today we saw Prime Minister going Kedarnath, Badrinath, this dham, that dham. 4 costume changes.
Yes. And
in 6 hours.
Open
espousal of
all the symbols.
Absolutely. Wearing on his forehead, I only associated, tilak marks or that with, people being taken on their final journey. But this is amazing. The kind of, because when you start espousing a religion, a faith, a belief, first you are espousing irrationality, then you are espousing it and saying that this is okay for you all to do it. It's a bad example for a country which is supposed to have modern values. You're supposed to learn that, 1 plus 1 is 2, not maybe. Then it's a dangerous move. That's why I think, in the early days, Jawaharlal Nehru never went into a temple. He was a believing Hindu. He did yoga, did all kinds of things. But he never went to a temple. He said, publicly, I do not want to go. Indira Gandhi also followed it for a long time till in the end she fell to superstition and was wearing Rudraksha Mala and started visiting temples. Rahul Gandhi is saying that I'm a Brahmin, I'm wearing a Janeu. What nonsense is this? What are we reducing this country to?
So coming back to the language, if this particular government or any government for that matter wants to force me to learn a particular language, which is not my mother tongue, and want me to agree to that as a national language, as a linked language, and connect that to my patriotism, my nationalism, my credentials, my identity as an Indian, I revolt against it. I rebel
and
against
each
it.
Each one of our larger linguistic groups is large enough to be a middle-sized country in the world.
They are.
And
They are
historically
indeed.
we were like that.
Yeah.
Only few times in history we were one.
Yeah.
Maybe during the time of Emperor Ashoka, maybe during the time of Akbar, and certainly during the time of the British. Even during the British we were not one.
Yeah.
They had presidencies and then the princely states were independent. The Nizam of Hyderabad was running a master of a territory as big as Britain. Jammu Kashmir was independent. The Rajasthan states were all independent. The presidencies were 3. But this is the first time this attempt is made to focus, stamp one stamp on us. Even Emperor Ashoka didn't try to make Pali the language of all Indians. He allowed Sanskrit to flourish, he allowed Hindus to flourish, Jains to flourish. They were all there at that time. Even Akbar couldn't stamp out.
And they didn't want to also.
They didn't want to.
Yeah.
But
Because they understood the diversity of this country.
And they didn't want to propagate it either.
And they respected it.
The only other guy who tried to propagate it was Aurangzeb, who ran probably the biggest Mughal empire. And the history lesson for the present ruling dispensation is Aurangzeb. At the height of Mughal expansion, collapsed after that. Where was the Mughal empire 20 years after Aurangzeb? This 1,000-year Raj you're trying to create will also end up that way.
Yeah.
And you will destroy this whole country in the process. This is a glorious idea in the world that so many different people will come together to be one political union, not an economic union, not a cultural union. That is going to be destroyed. Experiment never, Europe tried to do it and it ended up with Brexit. And how long will the rest last together? We don't know. But no other country has attempted it. We attempted it much before even Europe thought of it. We must give it to our founding fathers. They made mistakes, but these people are going to destroy us completely.
Very insensitive.
If you don't have loyalty to that original idea of India, then there is no other new idea of India you can impose on us. Because my allegiance is to that idea of India.
True.
I don't know.
I completely agree with you. And as you said, economically, one nation, one tax, agreed. One nation, one ration, agreed. It could be portability, etc., etc. But one nation, one language is not acceptable.
They're starting institutes with one fertilizer bag, one fertilizer brand.
And one nation, one photo is also not acceptable.
One nation, one photo is also not acceptable. I think they are sowing the seeds of disintegration. I don't see, if they follow this line, don't back off, continue to mouth such slogans, this is going to be the end of the
Idea of India.
first Indian Republic.
Yeah. The idea of
Get
India,
ready for a second, third, maybe half a dozen Indian republics.
it's the idea of India is under threat from religious bigotry, linguistic chauvinism, and regional hegemony.
And undereducated people.
Yeah.
That's the biggest danger, who think that foolish ideas can be implemented wholesale. Done. Thank you.